Yo, 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 we're back again for another episode of Relationship Topia. All things relationships, relationship with God the Creator, relationship with yourself, and relationship with others. All very important as you grow, evolve, and develop in life. We know that we were made to be relational beings. So we must know how to have effective relationships. And, this is the training grounds for healthy, thriving, and loving relationships across the board. And we hope you have been enjoying these episodes. We are actually, Joe, this is episode 50. So we're almost at 1 year. Where's the clan
Wow.
claps?
Yeah, that's pretty
So
awesome.
it is. It is. So last week we talked about we started a new series, if you would, of how do you or how are you? Not how do you, because we really don't want to give that type of information, but how are you currently sabotaging your relationship? So we talked about that. We talked about avoidance, emotional neglect, and communication, all those things. So we're gonna finish that up on today and really talk about part two of that, and this conversation is going to be centered around lack of effort and really lack of doing the work. Um, and this is part two. So we have like four, right, in this series that we're going to be talking about, four different segments that we're going to be talking about. So we're going to get right into it. Joe, you want to start us off with the first one we're going to talk about today?
Absolutely. I'm going to jump right in, but I do want to just say this. Last week, and you haven't seen last episode, make sure you go back. Matter of fact, make sure you subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you share this, all the things, right? Last week, we talked about communication issues, and that's a big, big deal. And it's something I think is so underestimated in relationships. So as today, we're talking about the lack of effort, as Trell said. And the first thing we want to talk about is this whole notion of lack of or neglecting quality time. I don't know where we get it, but I feel like over time in relationships we get complacent and
Comfortable.
we feel like we feel like we don't have to do anything, or we think that relationships going to just happen over like through osmosis. Like we
Mhm.
stop a lot of times in relationships. What I see in longer term, especially the longer you're with someone, what I often see is people forget to be in a relationship with their partner, and that can be very detrimental. And I can say I've experienced this in my own life, like not being tentative, right, to my partner, not being tentative to what I need to do to show up and invest that quality time. This is a huge problem. Many of us are familiar with the five love languages, quality time being one. I'm an advocate to believe, although we may have one or two dominant things as our love language, I believe for the most part, everybody appreciates all five. And to some degree, they want all five, right? Some more than
Mhm.
others. And so, with that being said, quality time is a thing. And if your partner definitely is that they're dominant and you're not giving them that, it's almost as if you're not showing up for the job and the job of your partnership, the job of investing. Like, we got to remember that being in a relationship is just as much as an investment as being on your job, if not more. Like, you get to show up every single day, right? Every single day, whether that's okay, I'm going to touch that physical touch. There's three things. This author wrote this book. I can't think of his name right now. He wrote a book talk about time, touch, and talk as the three pillars for healthy relationships. And this time we're talking about that time, and you get to spend that time. But there's certain many things. Sometimes we get distracted. Sometimes we start taking our partner for granted, and we just start getting busy in our careers. We get busy in our passion. We get busy in our purpose. And to be truthful, sometimes you can feel like oh, my wife is always going to be there. My husband's always going to be there. My partner's always there. And we don't take time to see them. We don't take time to say, hey, babe, I'm so glad you're here. I appreciate you. Let's spend some time together. Let's get some time on the calendar. Like, have those times locked in. And one of the things that I feel like I did do well in my marriage was like really setting time. However, it wasn't enough time, right? So we can set time and say, okay, hey, it may be, one day movie night watching TV, which is cool and people do that, but we got to realize that that is a very low functioning and a low vibration activity. It's good, especially if you're cuddling and you're doing physical touch and things like that, that could add some value, but you're not going to do the talking. And talking is essential. And it's you need to have at least 90 minutes of meaningful conversation a week with your partner at a minimum, right? And so if you're not meeting these bare minimum marks, what a lot of people aren't, because you get caught up into, and those conversations shouldn't be about the bills and the kids and all the things. It should be about life. It should be about what's happening in the world. It should be about the challenges. It should be about your values. It should be about your goals. You should, hopefully you guys have combined goals. And in this time of quality time, it's just not about going out and doing an extracurricular activity to have fun, although that's amazing. Part of that quality time needs to include, like I said, a minimum of a 90-minute conversation. And it doesn't have to be, okay, we're going to time it and be talking for 90 minutes. It may be 3 days a week, y'all talking for 30 minutes. Some of this may be on the phone, some of this may be in person, but you got to remember that you have to prioritize connecting. The thing that people fall into is having a work affair or having an affair with their passion. And this is just as detrimental as having an affair with another person, because at the end of the day, you're starving your relationship of an essential need, which is that need for time together. That's what really makes a relationship. If you ain't spending time and talking time and touch, what are we doing? What are we doing? And also, we make the mistake sometimes of assuming everything is fine. So, oh, he's okay. Oh, she's okay. Without regard to time and effort. Your relationship is just like an ATM. It's just like an account. You got to put stuff in there, because at some point you're going to want to withdraw things out called my needs and my desires, right? And so in order for your to be motivated to meet your needs and your desires, you get to invest in their needs and their desires and making sure you make them feel seen, heard, and understood. So those are the things I would say, sis, when it comes to neglecting quality time, some of the pitfalls and where people get hang up. And a goal that we all should have in relationships as we move forward, so we don't fall into that bucket of neglecting. And like I said, I feel like the 90 minutes is really a minimal goal to target for.
Yeah, I feel like you went that, you have a lot of experts that talk about time minimums and things of that nature. I feel like just the intentional connection overall, it has to be the large majority of the relationship needs to be intentional as far as you're connecting. And that looks different for a lot of people. And I feel like that's where people go wrong. They're just not connecting at all. There's a lack of attention. There's a lack of intentionality. There's a lack of prioritization when it comes to their partners. And especially if you're in a relationship with children, whether it's children with your partner or just children in general, that can make it a lot more complicated and challenging. And you wouldn't believe how many wives I speak to and how many individuals I speak to that are in relationships and children are involved, and the children have priority. And I get it that, when children are smaller, it does take it does take your focus, right? You have a different focus because you have to tend to the children a lot more. But there has to be a period where your spouse or your partner or whoever you're with, they know that they are a priority and they're not taking a back or a second seat. There are times when kids have to be the priority, but that's not always the case. And I do see that in a lot of the romantic relationships, especially when the children are involved. So that intentionality is definitely key overall. So going on to the next one, there is a lack of support. I recall I was at an event one year, and I don't know if I told this story yet, but I'll tell it again. And there's a young lady there. She was a vending, and she would vend at a lot of events. Like every weekend, she was out vending, and she had a few kids. And when she was vending, her children were at home with her husband. So she was married, the scenario. And she was talking to me about how her husband did not support her. So I said, well, did you, does he say anything about you coming to these events? Does he, say you can't go? Does he gripe and complain?
Sis, I don't
Does
know if
he
it's
try
just
to,
me, but
deny you?
Go ahead.
You
It's
can't
kind of
hear
going
me?
in and out.
Or
It's going in and out, but I don't know if it's just
okay.
on my end, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I was saying, does he stop you from attending any of these events? Is it, she's like, no. He keeps the kids, I come anytime I wanted to come to an event, I'm here. I said, well, that is a level of support. So, when you look at lack of support, you're looking at someone that is not a team player, someone that is not inspiring your goals or encouraging you to reach your goals and aspirations and even contributing to that, whether that's at home with the children, whether that is taking a second job, support looks differently. And I feel like with the support factor, you really need to share with your person what that support looks like. Sometimes we have our own perception of what things should look like, even in the role of support. And you may desire a certain level just based on your narrative or based on your lived experiences. So I feel like it's helpful for individuals to have a conversation. And when they don't feel supported, they're able to give examples of what that looks like, right? Because when there is a lack of support, there's also a sense of isolation. There's a sense of disconnection that is there as well. So we want to make sure that we feel supported in those relationships, and and when you do feel supported, you're not feeling inadequate, you're not feeling frustrated, you're not feeling undervalued, you're not feeling disconnected, and you're not ultimately putting a strain on the relationship. So some things that you can do is celebrate one another, right? Celebrating each other's success,
That's
celebrating
good.
each other's sense of teamwork. All of those things help strengthen the relationship overall. When that person knows that they're celebrated, they know that they're loved, they know that they're valued, they know that they have a sense of meaning in that relationship. And that takes a selfless person to be able to do that, right? And it takes a person of courage to be able to say, hey, I don't feel supported when, or I feel unsupported when, right? Getting back to our I statements, always sharing what you feel, what you're experiencing, not putting the blame on the other person, but just saying, I feel this when this happened. And as a result, this is what we have. So you have to be able to share that within that relationship. And then the second point I want to share under the lack of support is inadequate emotional support. That's a huge thing. We've been talking about this throughout our conversations, right? So sometimes it's not the physical support, many times it's the emotional support, right? Especially during times of
1,000%.
challenge, when you have challenges in the relationship, when you are going through obstacles and adversity that we're all going to experience in life and relationships. The absence of that emotional support can leave that person feeling abandoned. It could leave that person feeling alone. It could leave that person feeling rejected. And especially, Jill, if that individual has experienced past instances where they have felt abandoned, rejected, or alone, right? If they have past trauma or have just been in past relationships and they have felt dismissed and things of that nature. So we want to make sure that we are present, right? And I want to say this for the men who are not present for their person, during tough moments, they miss an opportunity to build trust. When you are present, and this is both sides, but I just wanted to share this with the men. When you show up and when your partner is going through something, right? It may not be personally inflicted on you, it may not be affecting you, but when you can see that they're hurting, when you can see that they're in need, when you can see that they're distraught, when you can see that they're despair or discouraged, when you simply just show up and be present, that alone builds trust, that alone builds intimacy in the relationship. When you're able to offer that empathy and that understanding, that helps to nurture the relationship, and it helps the relationship to be resilient. Too often the women find themselves in the shoes, right? The woman is always the person being empathetic, the woman is always the person being encouraging, the woman is always the person being supportive. But this needs to happen on both sides of the spectrum, between male and female in the relationship, and both have to give 100% to the relationship, whatever that looks like, right? Is 100% of what you have at that time. I don't like that 50-50, 60-40, whatever. You give 100% of what you have at that time to give. And I believe when individuals do that, they know that they can rely on one another. They know that they can gain strength from one another in that relationship. And they know that they're in it to win it. That's a plug for my book. And they're in it for the long haul.
Absolutely. All that's good and really important, to apply each and every day to our relationships to thrive. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the resisting change. And when I was thinking about this, what I came to me is this is a big thing, because people be quick, oh, you trying to change me? I ain't going to change. Really, I'm still trying to figure out. And when y'all find out, let me know. I'm trying to figure out what's the difference between changing and growing, because nobody wants to change, but everybody say they want to grow. But what I find is there's a confusion between complacency and contentment. Contentment is saying, yeah, I'm content with where I am, what I have. I'm not needing something outside of me to fulfill who I am. I'm a whole individual. So that's having a level of contentment about where you are and still having goals of where you want to strive to be. Complacency is where you choose to, whether consciously or subconsciously, continue in unhealthy, unproductive habits that's either undermining your health, undermining your relationship, uh, and you continue to do those things, although they're not, let me use this big B word, beneficial. And so that's one of the things that you get to consider. Like, am I holding on to habits that my partner is asking me to change? I know I need to change, but I'm struggling to or grow in. And I get it. Change is not easy. Change is not, it's a tough thing. But the truth of the matter is also, I want to say, when, in the absence of this, when you don't do the work, and the work a lot of times is on, guess who? The person sitting in your chair. That's where the work needs to be done in relationships. And then putting in so much effort and energy and doing so much for the other person is a lot of times is showing up as the best version of yourself in terms of all the things we talked about, from communication, from showing support, from being intentional about the quality time, and being willing to grow as an individual and not getting stuck in complacency to something that's undermining your well-being and the well-being of your relationship. Because the truth of the matter is, if you don't, oftentimes, more times than not, if you don't do the necessary work, your relationship is going to end. And what I know for sure is ending a relationship is hard. It's going to it's going to end. It's going to end oftentimes, or it's going to be a struggle situation. It's going to end, not win, and then end. And so what in the in those moments, you have to decide. Ending a relationship is hard, right? And making a relationship work can be hard, and it's not, again, hard so much for the other person. It's hard about what you need to do to be the best version of yourself, because what happens, and what I realize, is your flaws and shortcomings negatively impact your partner. They do. We don't want to admit it, but it's true. And yes, they do get to accept some of those things about you, and I get that. But if there's something about you that, again, you know you need to change, they know you need to change it, it's undermining your health, it's undermining your relationship, why wouldn't you do it? And I get it. And you may have some false starts. You may have to, dust yourself off and try again. And you may have relapse, whatever the case may be. But why not commit to being the best version of yourself? And I will even go further. If you aren't willing to if you're not committed to personal growth, if you're not committed to growth in general, then it's probably best you don't get in a relationship, unless you are in a relationship with somebody else who is also not committed to growth. But that could change, but I'm just saying, you be careful with that, because it creates an environment for failure, really, because generally people are going to change. We're going to evolve. We're going to grow. Most people want to grow and get to the next level. And it could be in various arenas of their life. And also, you got to be willing. The pitfall is people being unwilling to adapt and grow, which just hinders their development, which I guess I kind of are saying all that together. So that's pretty much what I have to say about that. So the resisting of change, resisting growth, not being committed, having commitment issues. And I get it, because I used to have commitment issues, and not in the way that you think in terms of being committed to my partner. No, it's committed to your word, committed to do and be who you say you are, committed to the commitments that you make, and really just being a trustworthy person. That's a big part of it too. And that may be an area you need to grow. If you find yourself making commitments and not keeping it, if you find yourself saying you're going to do X and you don't do it, those are very detrimental habits in relationships, because what's happening is you're making promises you don't keep. And when you make promises yourself that you don't keep, it's hard for your partner to trust you when you make partners to them to keep. So all of this is like, at the end of relationships, when it comes to making relationships work, is really about you growing and being the best version of yourself. So I didn't say that about 3 times. I'm gonna pass the mic. Go sis. What the 4th thing on today?
That's easily said than done too. That commitment and just committing to change, that's easily said than done, because if somebody's stubborn or selfish, right? That's why we always have to deal with those underlying things and issues that inhibit our ability. Is it prohibit our ability to be able to prohibit our ability. So inhibit is inhibiting. Okay. Is prohibit our ability to grow and evolve. And you were asking, like, change and growth is the same thing either. But when you say change, though, to the ears of someone that is already reluctant and already has a different perspective, well, that looks like control. When you say I need to change, it looks like you're trying to control me, which takes us right into the fourth thing. People that have control issues, whether that's you're controlling the trying to control the scenario, the narrative, the person. If you have a need for dominance, right? If you have a need for dominance in the relationship, and this is particularly more so when you more so see this in males, not all the time, but it's more talked about. I'm going to say that. I don't know what the latest statistics look like, but it's more talked about when you take look at control and someone trying to control the relationship. A lot of times, unfortunately, man, you get charged guilty, for that, just for a number of reasons, right? But anytime you try to control the relationship, whether that's decision making, whether that's trying to control someone's emotions, trying to control how someone feels, or trying to control how someone thinks by telling them they shouldn't think like this, they shouldn't feel like this, what's wrong with them, and just different things. You tired, sis? 'Cause you
You
yawning
see
back
me
there.
yawning over here.
That is
Listen,
actually that
this
is
is real
actually
life.
that is
Yes,
actually a
I
form
am,
of
but
that that is
this is
actually a
very
form of manipulation.
sorry.
The people can see you as well. That's why.
I know I can't
Yeah,
help it. I guess I'm
the
tired, and
people.
I don't
Hold
really
on.
feel that tired, but I guess I'm tired, and yeah, I'm a little tired, but I don't feel really that tired, but I guess it's getting closer to my bedtime. At least I've been trying to go to bed earlier. But anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
There you go.
I'm trying not
So
to yawn.
that's manipulation, right? So this need for dominance creates what? So resentment, and it pushes the person away from you. And this ultimately, if your person, your partner, your person is being pushed away from you, if they don't want to be in your space, if they don't want to be around you, this is going to lead to a unhealthy relationship. You're not going to have a healthy relationship. Relationships thrive on equality and mutuality. That's mutual respect, mutual love, and things of that nature. That's what you need in a relationship. And the second point I want to share under the control issues is being dismissive, having a dismissive attitude, right? I was talking with the young lady today, and she was just, it wasn't a friend, but it's somebody that she knows. And she said they were in the same place together, and the person like told her hi or whatever. And she just looked the other way. I'm like, oh, that was dismissive. She said, I guess it was. Right. So we want to work on things like that. And again, it wasn't her friend, it was just somebody that she knew. But at the same time, even how you treat a stranger, I feel like says a lot about you. And Joe, you were saying something in the last point, and I wanted to point out that, a lot of times those things, those underlying issues, those are part of the character of the person. Right. So when you look at the character of the person, when you see certain areas of their life, them not able to show up, lying and being selfish and being controlling and dominating and things of that nature, that starts to veer over into how the person makeup is, their overall makeup. And those are things that we have to deal with. So when we look at dismissiveness, when you're dismissing your person, right? Dismissing their opinions, dismissing their decisions, dismissing their how they're feeling emotionally. This erodes trust, and this creates feelings of inadequacy. That person starts to feel inadequate. They start to feel unwanted. They start to feel unloved. It can be something so very simple. Dr. Gottman talks about, bids for connection, right? When your partner bids for connection, like when they say, hey, honey, can you come here for a minute? You just totally ignore them, right? That's like dismissive when they're calling out to you, or when they're asking you a question, or asking your opinion or your insight or whatever, and you just totally ignore. That's dismissiveness, and this causes mistrust to occur in the relationship. So you definitely want to validate, right? You want to validate so you don't lead to emotional withdrawal. You don't lead to resentment. You don't lead to the person not feeling like their contributions, whatever that may be, to the relationship is not valued. So what we want to do is foster an environment where both people feel heard, where both people feel loved, where both people feel respected. And these things are essential if you are looking to have a healthy relationship. Again, this podcast is all about the training grounds on how to help you to have healthy relationships, healthy, thriving, and loving relationships. And these things that we're sharing with you, this is just not for heterosexual relationship, man between women. This is for relationships with parents, with siblings, with children, with business partners, and things of that nature. So all of these things are equally valuable, and equally you're equally able to utilize these in other relationship spectrums.
Absolutely. So it's definitely, and that's a good place to practice, right? Because wherever you go,
Mm-hmm.
there you are. So it's good to be consistent as an individual And on to that point, sis, sometimes we don't even realize how we treat others can impact how our partner sees us. So if we're treating other people harshly, abruptly, getting a little edgy
Mm.
on with the customer service representative, it sheds a negative light on how you're treating others. And they're going to think, and this is a wise person should judge, you should judge people and assess people, not on how they treat you, but how they treat others. And so know that that's also part of your character. So don't think, oh, I can be so sweet and nice to my partner, but I can chop off the lady head on the representative of customer service when they don't give me what I want. So we still get to, and
Mhm.
I get it, right? But we still get to act in love and still show our best self and let our best self shine. Before we move on to the fifth thing, sis, I wanted to say, I want to drop this bombshell that was really just revealed to me, I don't know, sometime this year. But the number one factor when we're talking about the success of our relationship, the number one factor is really your lifestyle and your habits. And so, as we're talking about, as we just talked about resistant change, as we talk about having control issues, and as we're going to talk about insecurity and jealousy, all these type of a lifestyle things, habits, all those patterns are the number one indicator is whether your relationship is going to succeed or not. That's my opinion. That's my position. That's what I start to realize. And I think people don't realize how what you do and don't do impacts your relationship. So it's just not about your interaction with that person too, is about how you're spending your time. Okay, I don't want to get off topic, but I just wanted
Mhm.
to throw that in there because I feel like that's an essential part of what we're talking about as well. So leading to the fifth thing is getting to insecurity and jealousy. And this shows up differently for everyone. I believe that everybody has insecurities. Let me just go ahead and put that on the table, men and women alike. However, we have different levels that we can be triggered. And really, the ideal in relationship is that our partner will be so transparent, we will be so connected that our insecurities will melt away. However, that's not always the case, and sometimes we may come in with mother and father wounds that's unaddressed. Come on, so many of us have them.
Mhm.
The majority of the, and that gets into, I don't even want to get into the conversation, but a lot of us have mother and father wounds. If you didn't grow up with both parents in your house until,
Even if you
you
did.
know, yeah, and yeah, like I did, we did, and still has some stuff. So most people have mother and father wounds, and that goes into a whole bigger conversation, especially in the Black community. But I believe it's not just even Black communities. It's about 67% of the population at a minimum experience this. So it's an overwhelming majority. And so, with that is the case, sometimes people come in with trust issues with their parents, because we got to remember how your parental relationship sets the stage and sets your temperament and how you are in other relationships. So if there was a lot of distrust, if your parents would say, I'm coming, and they didn't come, a lot of broken promises, a lot of disappointment, you're going to have that same level. Oftentimes, if it's unaddressed, unhealed, and all the things, you're going to have that same level of anticipation with your partner. And a lot of times people don't see it as not being connected. And what I'm going to say for those who are single, I'm going to caution you to really um, I want to say avoid people who haven't addressed their mother and father wounds. And if you can't avoid them or you're already in a relationship with them, you need to make sure before you take that relationship to the next level that those issues are
Cautious.
addressed, because that stuff is going to show up. It's not about if it will show up, it's a matter of when it
When.
will show up, because some behavior is more what they consider overt, which means out in your face and you can see it, and then some behavior is covert. When you get into covert behavior that's kind of covered, it may take years, if not decades, for you to realize how somebody is truly feeling or responding in a situation, which puts you at a significant disadvantage because you're not able to address issues, which leads back to what you were saying, Trail, people getting into contentment. Well, I don't know if you, I mean, not contentment, contempt and resentment, and other negative emotions, because they may not be transparent or have the skills to know how to share. And I don't know if we talked, I saw vulnerability on our notes, but yeah, I'm not getting beside myself. Maybe we already talked about it. Oh, I think it was last week. But however the case, having a skill set to know how to be vulnerable. So with that, we get to just make sure we're operating in a space that we're assessing how their parental relationships is, did they heal, all the things before we move forward, because that can lead to jealousy and even not even just parental relationships, past relationships. If somebody has a history of being cheated on, they may make assumptions and things like that. And then that's another thing that can be very detrimental to a relationship, is making assumptions. And what I want to say about assumptions, keep this in mind when you talk about communication, level of communication, because what it's doing is assuming I know XYZ without asking the question. And I'm gonna tell you, the best, one of the things I've learned I would say recently, is the power of asking questions and being very direct about what happened, why it happened, why
Oh,
didn't it happen.
okay.
Can you hear me? All the things, it's really important to ask questions and not make assumptions. If your partner do or say something, or they don't do or say something, they break their promise, they cancel, whatever the case may be, have the courage to ask why. Because a lot of times when we don't ask why, it leaves us in a space that we're sitting there and assuming we know when we don't know, and we can make a wrong assumption, and then now our energy is off. We thinking they doing XYZ, and it could be nothing to what we're thinking. Our imagination is running wild. Some people even get to the point where they may be just creating a whole false narrative that's not true. And then the second thing under insecurity and jealousy is really like that lack of self-esteem. And this is also very huge. Let me tell you something, what I know for sure. If you are dealing with a lack of self-esteem, it will impede your ability to communicate effectively. Because one of the things about communication is just not about talking, and it's just not about listening, although those are two important parts, and listening is a very important part, but it's more to it than that. For you to be able to communicate and say, you got to know what you want, know your values, know your boundaries, you got to know where you say, you can't go there with me. I'm not going there with you. Like, you got to know what you want. And you got to be able to communicate that. You got to know what you cannot tolerate. You got to know when you can't go there. And so if you haven't worked this out with yourself and really are solidified in your values, solidified in your beliefs, solidified in your boundaries and your standards, then you can't communicate that. And it's going to lead to confusion. It's going to lead to just a misunderstanding, because then you're going to start accepting things that you don't accept, or agreeing to things that you don't agree, and not advocating for yourself. Let me tell you, you get to be the biggest advocator in your relationship. You have to advocate your interests, what you want, what you need, your desires, and your partner likewise. And you guys get to decide and make those concessions of how can we work with each other. And sometimes it may come out, our values and beliefs are so diverse, and neither one of us are willing to compromise or adjust, grow, change, or whatever to reconcile said differences, that it's not going to work. And it's okay. It's better to figure that out now than being in a marriage 5, 10, 15 years figured out, because that makes it very, very challenging at that point.
What you don't work out, you act out.
Amen.
That's why it's so very important to deal with your stuff. Granted, you're not going to come into any relationship just 100% healed and 100% whole. However, you will be at a point where you identify that you got some stuff and you're still working on it, but you have learned how to manage those areas in your life. You've learned healthy coping mechanisms, and you're able to be in a relationship with another person without sabotaging the relationship. This is what this conversation is all about. You're not sabotaging yourself, so self-sabotaging is not happening, and you're not doing things to sabotage a relationship. I just heard Just Wit talk about this. She recently got married. She's a actor, comedian, and content creator, and some other things, I believe. And she was just talking about how she dealt a lot with self-sabotage, and she would see things going well, but because of her past experiences and things of that nature, she questioned the relationship, and she almost could have cost herself a great, what it seems like a great husband. So we have to really be mindful when we have those areas in our life. Again, everything is not going to just go away and poof, be gone, but you have to recognize when you still got some crap there, and you're working through that crap, because if not, you're going to take that same crap into that relationship, and you're going to ultimately destroy the relationship. So we talk a lot about dealing with the root causes, the root issues, dealing with the effects of your trauma, because you can't deal with the trauma because it's already done. But the effects of the trauma, stop blaming and accusing everybody else, and take some accountability and be responsible. right? Don't confuse that with somebody's trying to control you, trying to tell you what to do, or trying to run your life. No, helping you to be accountable. And that's what you do in healthy relationships. You're
Come
accountable
on, sis.
one to another. And the
A thousand
last,
percent.
the last, exactly. And the last point we're going to go over today is identity crisis. That goes right in line with what you were saying earlier, just knowing who you are, being able to hold your own, being able to work through things. When you don't know who you are as an individual, when you're constantly battling with that in your mind, in your emotions, because of your past, because you were never affirmed as a young child. A lot of this does stem from childhood, right? When you're just constantly battling that area, this can cause so much confusion, so much frustration, and it's going to impact your ability to engage and connect with your spouse. When you don't reconcile with who you are, the person who you are, the person who you're becoming, if you even want to say that, this is going to impact the relationships. If you're constantly questioning that role, you're constantly trying to identify with other things and other people, and not really being solid and confident or confident, if you would, if you don't address these things, you're going to end up in a relationship and you're going to tear it completely apart. So how do you figure out who you are? How do you determine that? There's some self exploration that has to happen. You're going to reflect on certain areas of your life. You're going to deal with some things that are in your past that may have contributed to you feeling just unaware of who you are as an individual. Maybe you grew up in an abusive household, or a household that was very critical, or maybe you were in past relationships that didn't treat you as well. Maybe you've had some your own shortcomings, in your childhood or young adulthood, and you question certain things about your physical makeup and things of that nature. You have to become one with yourself and become one with the Father, in order for you to really be okay with whatever imperfections you may have, whatever insecurities you may have, because we all have imperfections, we all have insecurities. You have to be okay with who you are. And a lot of times you'll say this, especially for the woman, I know men deal with this as well. Get off social media and stop looking at everybody and how they
Please.
look and how they're showing up,
Please.
and think that that's who you should be, right? You have to be your image is made in the image and the likeness of God, not anybody else, right? So a lot of times you have to turn off that social media and stop trying to relate or connect with people so much, and connect with your Father, because He's the only one that can affirm you. So I want to encourage you, to seek clarity about your identity and your values, and do that with your Creator. This will help you to have a deeper connection with yourself. This will help you to have mutual understanding with the person that you're with, instead of you constantly trying to attach yourself or associate to things that are really false, because we really don't know what lives that these people live. We just see an image, and we like that image, and we feel like that image gets us what we want, get us the attention that we need or desire, and things of that nature. And people conform to these things, and they really don't know what they're signing up for when they do that. So the best thing you can do is, if you're struggling with identity, your confidence, and you're extremely insecure, you're finding yourself extremely needy and things of that nature, you're looking for even your partner to constantly affirm you or to validate you or things of that nature, then you really need to start exploring who you are. And you do that through getting to know the person that created you.
Amen. That's good stuff. Good stuff.
That's all we got.
That's it. That's all. And I think that's a great way to end for this segment. So, as we always say, we want you guys just don't, listen to this and be like, oh, that was a lot of good information. But we always want to give you a what one thing that you heard today that you need to lock in on, right? And just to give a high level overview, we talked about, are you guilty of neglecting quality time and being intentional in your relationships? Are you not giving the support? Are you resistant to change? Are you dealing with control issues, maybe insecurity, jealousy, or identity crisis? Like, which one of these is like, man, if you can just choose one of these areas that you want to laser focus on, even for the next 7 days, and hopefully even beyond, that it can make a difference in your relationship. Like I said, ending a relationship is hard, and staying also can be hard, especially when there are challenges present. And so the answer is not, oh, running away and in a relationship, because a lot of times, again, wherever you go, there you are. That you running from a problem, you go to the next room, it's going to be waiting right there for you. So it's better to
Hey,
work
hey.
out to develop the skills of healthy conflict resolution as we've been teaching, to work those things out and move forward in your relationship. So that's what we got.
Absolutely. That's all we
So
got.
until
Peace
next
and
time, you
blessings.
guys,
Episode
we'll
50
see
in
you
the
back here,
books.
same time, same place. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you like this. Make sure you subscribe and like and share. Until next time, we're out. Peace.
Peace.